Hey, so I'm Dr. Spencer Agnew, physical therapist and a run coach, and today I want to talk about why we like slowing down in order to go faster, and a lot of the mistakes that people make when they're trying to push themselves from a performance standpoint, push themselves from just an enjoyment of a sport standpoint, and how our ego tends to get in the way. So I'm not the most artistic and graphically appealing individual, so these are going to be boring. But hey, it's all about the story and getting the point across. So we're going to focus on basically three different things. We want to focus on how all of us want results quick, but are you willing to deal with the consequences? And we'll go a little bit deeper into that. How we can focus on mastery versus completion, and then understand the equation for growth. And I'm going to use a little bit of a scale analogy there to paint you a visual. So let's throughout this we're going to discuss basically how it is important to think about slowing down rather than always just trying to go faster. And go faster means more than just running, more than just tempo repetitions, but progressing faster, right? If you're in the weight room and you want to improve your back squat, are you adding weight on every single time because, well, if I can, so I should, right? Are you just trying to push through that process more quickly than you should be? And what does that development actually look like? So let's get started. Let's talk about how we all want results quick, but are we willing to deal with the consequences? So for a visual, right, I have this beautiful log cabin in front of us, right? So kind of close your eyes, take yourself to this moment. Maybe this is your dream, maybe it's not. It's just something that came to mind. Kind of an example of a story. But if you want this outcome, right, if you want to be able to take family and friends up to the cabin, be on the water, go out boating, fishing, just enjoying the sun, whatever it is that you want, this might be an ideal situation for you, right? A nice log cabin tucked away into the woods, right on the water. What a lot of people do when they want this outcome is they're going to think about getting their friends up there, right? Having friends, family, having that getaway, that escape, going to the water. So they might think and focus solely on that. But if they do that, right, if we get to that outcome, we get to that goal of a 200-pound back squat or running a marathon or breaking 5 minutes in the mile, when you get to that point of performance, that point of execution, you're going to be reminded of all things you forgot, right? You forgot that you don't have electricity in the house right now, right? You don't have running water. Where are you going to use the bathroom? The driveway isn't paved. There's no gravel. You have to walk through the woods to even get into this plot of land. How are you even going to get the boat there, right? There's no pier here set up. Like, where are you going to tie the boat off to, right? So there's a lot of these things that you haven't thought about, right? I'm not a carpenter, so I don't know necessarily how everything that goes into building a house, but what's the foundation like? Is there heating? Is there cooling, right? Are you going to be able to use this all year long? Is it only going to be something in the summertime and you have to winterize it? Like, what is all that going to be like? There's a lot to go through, a lot of process to think about before you can bring all your friends and family up here, right? But if we only think about the end, right, we only think about the results that we want, we're going to miss a lot of that process. So if we bring that back to movement, which is where we live, right, at Peak Endurance, where I live as a run coach, do we want to get there quickly or do we want to get there correctly, right? What are our goals? Are our goals to help this individual get to a race, right? Get to pain-free movement, get to staying active, living a longer, healthier life, right? If that's the goal, let's do that correctly, right? Instead of doing it quickly. Ideally, we want both, right? Ideally, we want to give people the outcomes they're looking for in a short amount of time, but make sure it's done right, right? One thing that we see all the time, and this is, I'm going to use physical therapy and running as some examples, but in the physical therapy world, a lot of what we do is give people confidence, right? We give them a belief system in themselves to know that, hey, you are a resilient individual. Some of our mission is to prove to people that they are resilient and they're stronger than they think they are, right? And we can preach to them, we can educate them, we can discuss with them that idea and that topic. And throughout doing that, we help them get to the next step. Through doing that, we help them understand that they can move, right? A lot of people in the past who maybe have not understood what's going on have said, nope, take time off, right? You shouldn't be doing this. See it all the time in the running world, right? You have pain running, you shouldn't be running. But in actuality, you're resilient. Like, running is part of your rehab process. In some cases, in most cases, you can continue to do that, right? So in giving people the confidence and giving people that understanding, they're able to move, which helps them start to feel better more quickly, right? And at that time, they say, I feel great. Thank you so much. You helped me so much. I don't need you anymore. But in doing that, we've actually done a disservice to the individual because they think they've got the result quickly, right? But we've got the wrong result quickly, right? We've made short-term changes. We're seeing cool outcomes in a short amount of time, but not lasting outcomes, right? We haven't built that person up as an individual from a neurological standpoint, from a movement standpoint, from a tissue capacity standpoint, to be resilient in the long term. We've built their psyche up to be resilient in the short term, which is great. And that's what we need to do because guess what? To do things correctly, it takes time, right? It takes time for the body to adapt, to respond, to remodel and remold itself into the resilient person that you want to be. But we need to have confidence to do that, right? So do you want it quickly or do you want it correctly, right? If you want it correctly, you need to sign up for a long run. It's going to take some time. Same thing goes for running. Had experience with this personally. I know other athletes have had this, but if you want to get there quickly, you go out and you hammer VO2 max workouts constantly, right? You can go out there, you can do these really high, really intense workouts, and I promise you, you will get fit fast, right? There's certain ways that we can get you fit very quickly. Is that the correct way to do it? If your goal is to get fit fast to do a race and then sign off and go do something else, it might be, right? But if you want to be a lifelong runner, if you want to continue to develop in the sport, a lot of times you need to take it slow, right? You need to actually do less of those workouts. You need to stack up more easy running, build up metabolic, right, biomechanical, muscular adaptations so that your body has a foundation, right? Thinking about our house here, we have the foundation to be able to build on top of it. Most people empty their they don't have a foundation built into the house. They just start stacking bricks, right? Without understanding that if they don't have that stable foundation, doesn't matter how well you stack your bricks, eventually something's going to break. And people do this consistently over and over and over again when they go through this injury cycle of stacking bricks up, feeling really good, crashing back down, stacking bricks up, crashing back down. And they neglect and forget that they just need to do some of the boring things, right? Think about getting there correctly rather than thinking about getting there quickly, right? The challenge there is there's an ego at play, right? We feel like we have an identity and an understanding of what we should be doing, right? And we need to get that word should out of the vocabulary. We need to do what is necessary to be done, right? The best thing that's done needed to be done to get us there in the correct fashion, in the correct amount of time, okay? I tell people all the time, you're in the privilege of moving more by moving better. Most people neglect how well they move, whether they're lifting, whether they're running, whether they're doing a sport. They think, and we've kind of hammered it as a society, that there's this finite game that we're playing of a beginning, a middle, and an end, and all you have to do is get to that end outcome without realizing that tomorrow there's going to be another one of those games, and another one of those games, and another one of those games. And if we think about it instead like an infinite game, running again is for me where I live. If running can be your infinite game, where the goal is to just perpetuate the game, the goal is to just continue running, then you need to focus on how well you're moving because that's going to keep the game going longer. If you want to think about running in a finite fashion and think about it as if you have a beginning of your training cycle, a middle of your training cycle, a race at the end, and then rinse and repeat, you can do that. You're going to have a lot of ups and downs, right? You think about your running instead as an infinite model where your only goal is to continue to keep running. You can throw races in there. You can throw different training cycles in there. You can have all this fun in the sport, but you're always focused on continuing to perpetuate the game, which you need to do through moving better, right? Doing the correct things, right? Taking the correct amount of time, building those blocks, building that foundation rather than taking the shortcuts. Challenges, shortcuts are hard, or the shortcuts are easy because you get there quickly. So sometimes you got to slow down to go faster. Focusing on mastery versus completion. So the question I ask people is, what is your goal? Are you focusing on checking the box every day to hit some sort of, I call it a vanity metric, or are you focused on mastery, right? This thing right here, this watch is terrible for us, right? Everybody lives and dies. They classify themselves as a success or a failure based on what that watch tells them, right? What their heart rate is, what their pace is, what their distance is. They have to hit a certain amount of mileage every week because that's what success is. And in actuality, your body has no idea what 48 miles versus 50 miles a week are, right? Like going out there for an extra 2-mile run to hit a 50-mile a week metric is a you problem, right? Not a progression and improvement in the sport problem, right? I'll ask people a lot of like, what's your goal mileage? And they give me an exact number instead of saying whatever I need to get to, right? Like however I can progress in a safe and comfortable manner, playing this infinite game of running. People use this all the time to classify if they had a good or a bad run, instead of understanding that they're feeling how they felt during that run, what they were thinking, right? How they were moving can classify that as success or failure. Not, well, it must have been a bad run because my heart rate was higher today. And then I have to go into the question of, okay, well, is that because you didn't hydrate, you didn't sleep last night? Like, is it hot out? Like, there's all these other variables that go into that. So quit letting these vanity metrics control you. I'm okay with data. I love data. So I use the watch, right? I measure with the watch, but I use it as a tool rather than a crutch to validate whether I had a good or a bad day, right? I'll go into it and I'll mark off how hard did I feel like that was? How did I feel even before I look at what pace I was at or what heart rate I was at. I don't get splits anymore, right? I run everything based off of effort. So use the watch, but know that that is focusing on checking the box and focusing on the wrong vanity metrics, rather than what I want you to focus on is mastery, right? If we can focus on mastery of how well we're moving, right? How well can we read our body? Can we, in the moment, change the workout? Because you know what, right now I'm over the edge. I feel like the intent of this workout isn't to hit a certain pace. It's to hit a certain effort, to hit a certain feeling. And you know what, I'm working too hard, so I should slow down, right? And knowing that slowing down is actually doing the workout correctly, actually playing the long game, the infinite game, the correct timeline for you to develop as an individual and as an athlete, right? So if we can instead, if we think about every day as a box to check either completion or mastery, if we can focus each day on trying to master the goal of that day, you're going to be playing an infinite game. You're going to be progressing yourself as an athlete rather than thinking, okay, I got to get to this point. I got to get to that point. I'm stressed. I'm worried. I have to hit these paces, these splits. What am I going to do if I miss my run? What if, it's hot out. I'm not going to run as well. I'm going to feel bad. Like, what's going on? Take a little break, right? Focus on mastery. Hey, the goal today is to have an easy recovery run. If I had planned 6 miles and I get out there and I feel kind of crummy, a 4-mile easy recovery run accomplishes that goal. That's mastery. If I focus on moving really well, right? This run, I'm just going to try to have good biomechanics, right? Maybe I'm limited in my sprinting ability. So I'm going to start doing some more sprints. And I'm not going to stress that, okay, sprints are not going to give me a lot of mileage, right? I'm not going to hit that vanity metric of miles per week, but I'm working on a different category, right? I'm working on my ability to generate power, my ability to move better, my ability to stimulate my nervous system in a certain way to get access to those muscle fibers. And that's okay, right? That's mastery. That's completion of a infinite game rather than just completion to hit a vanity metric. Okay? So let's think about the equation we need. We need stress plus rest equals growth, right? It's a classic equation that people use to talk about performance and how they're going to get better. So we need to stress the system, right? We need to break the body down, actually get worse in the moment, plus rest and recover to grow our performance, to grow our resiliency, to grow our tissue mass, to grow our tissue force, to grow the resiliency we have within our tissues, to grow our speed, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? There's tons of things that we can grow, metabolic functioning, et cetera. I like to think about this as a scale, right? There's a certain amount of tolerance that we have. There's a certain amount of load that we're putting on our body. So if we, in the moment, let's use pounds, for example. We can tolerate, I'm going to go simple, we'll roll with me here, easy numbers. We can tolerate 20 pounds of force, okay? But we're loading ourselves up with 25 pounds of force. Okay, that means the load scale is going to tip. We are stressing the body. Then, the next day, maybe we do something light, right? We can tolerate 20 pounds, we do a 10 pound of a force load. Okay, now our tolerance is going down. This is more of a rest, more of a recovery standpoint. That's great. We're kind of teetering back and forth. We're continuing to stress and rest to grow. Now let's say we're sick, or let's say we didn't get a good night's sleep, or we're not hydrated. We didn't eat lunch today, so we're not fueled going into our workout because maybe we were busy, or maybe we thought that we were having some issues with food, and we thought that we needed to skip that because we ate too much the night before, the day before, or most likely it's because you just forgot, or you were busy with school or work or whatever. That's going to change your tolerance number, right? Your sleep, your hydration, your nutrition, your stress levels, your connection with others, the heat, the humidity, the elevation, the altitude, all that stuff is going to change this tolerance number. So maybe your tolerance is 20 pounds normally, but because of the state that you're currently in, it's down to 10, right? And you apply that same load of 25 pounds. This scale is going to tip even more. And then the next day when we previously had done 15 pounds of load, but we had 20 pounds tolerance, and you do 15 pounds again, this scale continues to stay tipped in the wrong direction, right? So you might be doing all the right things loading wise, right? Your training plan might be okay, but you're not worried about your tolerance, right? You're not worried about some of these resting elements. You're forgetting that your sleep is important, right? Your hydration, your nutrition. Maybe it's hot out and you feel like I'm resilient, I'm tough enough. I don't have to modify the spaces or the distances because of the heat. I'm just going to push through. Well, guess what? The tolerance is limited because of that heat. You might not be adapted to that heat yet if it's the first hot week of the year, right? So that's something that we've got to deal with. You can do these same things with paces, right? Maybe you can tolerate a 5-minute mile and you're running 4:30 miles, or you can tolerate an 8-minute mile and you're running 7-minute miles. That's okay, right? In a short dose. That's a stress in a short dose. But if you are not recovered, right? And this is a classic one with lactic threshold. Drives me nuts. Everybody says their lactic threshold is a certain number because they've looked at a stupid chart, right? So you look here at the chart and you say that your lactic tolerance, lactic threshold is whatever pace. Let's just use 8-minute pace for right now. So you go out and you try to load 8-minute pace, but maybe you were not recovered from the day before. So your lactate levels are going to rise more quickly, or maybe you won't be able to actually utilize that because there's not enough fuel in the system. So you're going to overwork in a depleted state and not be able to access that fuel to increase some of those lactate levels. There's a lot of different variables that play. Or you didn't sleep well, or you didn't hydrate well, right? Or you're over a hilly course and you normally run it on a flat course, right? There's all of these factors at play that can change your tolerance, but you're not changing the load. That continues to stress, not enough rest. There will be no growth, right? We will not be able to tolerate this over the long term. So be aware of how much you're loading, how much can you tolerate. This is more abstract, right? We don't have like a look at my watch. Oh, I can tolerate this many minute miles, right? This is a feel thing. This is a mastery thing. Understanding how to read your body. What do you feel like today? How you slept, right? Collecting some of that data. Maybe you're using HRV, maybe you're using feel, maybe you're using resting heart rate. You can use some data here, but this is getting to mastery. And this is a lot of times where we help people from an injury standpoint to discuss and talk about how can we implement this new training program, this new lifting program into your life, keep you moving, whether that's running or lifting or swimming or biking or playing ultimate frisbee. How can we do that while maintaining a good balance back and forth, knowing that we are going to tip the scales some days. We are going to have rest days and continue to grow your body's resiliency, your body's tolerance over the long term so that you can have, our goal at the end of the day, a long, healthy, enjoyable, movement-filled life, right? So remember, a lot of times you need to slow down in order to go faster. You need to do less in order to do more, right? You need to take more time off or more time of the boring stuff before you can do the fun stuff, right? Build up that foundation of your house. Don't worry about getting to all these fun races and boating and all that things. Worry about building that foundation so that when your friends and your family and significant others and everybody comes up to see your cabin, the cabin's going to be awesome. People are going to have a place to sleep, and you can really just enjoy the views, enjoy the water at that time. Don't get sucked into the vanity metrics of your watch. Give yourself grace, focus on mastery, and listen to your body. And make sure to keep in mind the pillars of load versus tolerance. Your tolerance and your loads are malleable and adaptable things depending on the state of recovery that you're in. If you are fatigued, if you are sore and you didn't sleep and you didn't eat, know that your tolerance is decreased in that moment. So make sure we can modify those loads.